Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been shown that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. We'll match you with the perfect buddy. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
We're offering you a free membership, so please sign up today. Share this with your friends and family, and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
Rodney C. Burris is an international speaker, youth advocate, professional development coach, and published author who grew up in the inner cities of Baltimore and Jacksonville in the United States. In the USA, Rodney is regarded as one of the nation's top leaders in unlocking human potential and inspiring organizations to greatness. He's delivered speeches all over the globe and is poised to disrupt the status quo in leadership and organizational development. It is my distinct honor to introduce you to Rodney C. Burris.
I've had some really interesting experiences in my life, things that I'm grateful for that have been really impactful. One of them is I was certified in a relationship curriculum called Building Strong Families, right? BSF for short. And Building Strong Families was founded by this older couple, and it turned into a national, the curriculum had national reach. One of the interesting things about the curriculum, at least how we did it, where I was based in Baltimore, is that we would bring couples in. They would be what they call in the magic moment or the magic window, which was a period of time from conception to the child being 1.5 years, right? So anywhere between the child being 1.5 years old, all the way up, going backwards to the conception, right? Just conceiving of that child, was this period where if 2 people were taught how to connect, be vulnerable, be transparent, that the chances that they would stick together throughout the life of that child goes way up, right? And then all of the benefits of having more than one income and dual parent support and all of those kind of things, right? That's why it was called Building Strong Families. Now, that wasn't the name of the curriculum, actually, but that was the name of the Baltimore version of it that I was a part of, right? So anyway, there were all of these like national, regional, local events and conferences and stuff like that. And I remember I went to one of these things and there was an older couple there and they were well established in their career. And they kind of was doing like this talk, like this kind of panel conversational discussion and just about how we can better deliver and do our work, right? But they told their story and it blew my socks off, right? So tell me how this lands for you. They're older, right? They're much older than I was, you know, some silver, some grays going on, right? They had been, and this was years ago. So I don't know how old they are now, but they were probably easily 30, 40, 40, 50, 45 years older than me at that time. So the woman grew up in a very idyllic household, right? It was her mom, her dad. No fights, no arguments, you know, hair always pulled back in these little pigtails, you know, picket fence, like the whole nine, right? Mommy, dad, you can imagine, remember those shows where, you know, the singing happens and the birds kind of alight on the shoulders and you feed them and it's, you know, it's kind of just, you pull your skirt up as you just kind of move around the garden. And that's kind of how I took her story. Like she just lived in this perfect little dreamscape of a childhood, right? And she said that she remembered arguments started happening here and there. They just started out being like little tiffs, little disagreements that at first she didn't pay attention to, but that just wasn't their setup. That wasn't their environment. And then it went from arguments and tiffs, I mean, like little tiffs to full blown, like at each other's throat, like, yeah. One day in the heat of the moment, the gentleman, the dad, her dad, I'm sick, whatever he says, right? He goes walking towards the front door. The mom is like, you're not just going to just keep running from problems. Like, I'm not doing this with you. And every time it gets like this, you just think you can just leave. The little girl was scared. She hadn't heard them this elevated before. She hadn't heard it, felt this panic, frantic energy, right? I'm getting shivers thinking about this. I actually have my own experiences as a child, you know, in environments like that. I remember kind of running in, trying to save the day on my parents, you know, because I didn't know what was about to happen next. How bad could it get? I've actually seen it get pretty bad, right? To be honest with you. So this is, can you imagine now that you know that about me, now picture how tuned in I am to her story, because she's talking about my childhood in her own kind of way. Maybe not the idyllic part, right? I didn't have no birds and no dreamscape and no picket fence going on. But that tension, that at each other's throat, that yelling through the house, I lived through that for a period. So I'm hanging on every word that this lady's saying, right? And she says that she goes and she runs and kind of stands in front of the door. And she stands in front of the door, one, because she was trying to get as far away from them as possible and they were moving in her way. Two, she was trying to hide. And three, she was trying to block the door just in case her daddy was trying to leave, like mommy was just saying, like, just in case, you know, he really wants to go. I don't want him to go. And so she stands there and she kind of covers herself or whatever she does to kind of like hide and block the door and get away from them. And he gets to her and he's like, he pauses and he kisses her on the forehead. He says, Daddy loves you, baby. Kind of moves her a little bit out the way, walks through the door. That was the last time she saw her dad. She went through all of the hanging out the window, looking, is that daddy? She went through all of the now we have to move. And I lived through some of this, right? She went through just the feeling of loss. But because it didn't end with, this is the end, there's this open feeling of expectation. This just maybe, just maybe. The anger, the dejection, the rejection. She went through a period where she just didn't give a care anymore, right? Lived wild and loose and free and just didn't care. Somehow she made it through. She graduated high school. She made it into college. And she had this moment where she wanted to have better. Like she really wanted just to have the type of relationship where she felt comfortable, but she was running from it. She didn't know how to do it. She gets to college and she meets this guy, right? Pause the story there. The older gentleman, white hair, silver hair, right? So now we're going back to the present then, when I was, training and certified in these curriculums. And curricula, that's how you say the plural of curriculum, is curricula. But anyway, he was talking about his childhood. His childhood was horrible. It was a lot of yelling, constantly, incessantly. There was a lot of fussing. There was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of arguing all the time. There was a lot of violence all the time. But the crazy thing about it is that the violent perpetrator was his mom. His mom was constantly yelling. His mom was throwing things across the house. His mom was constantly hitting on and beating the dad. And it was because of this that the dad, so let me rephrase that. I can't say it was because of this. Alongside the mother's dynamic that he was sharing about, his father drank a lot. And when he would get drunk, he would just kind of like close in, like numb to the world, which of course infuriated the mom. Are you even listening? And he's just like not responding. He's like barely just responsive, barely feeling it. You ever seen a drunk guy get in a fight, like two drunk dudes, like they're swinging and falling and missing each other, and like one falls but doesn't get hurt because he falls some sort of awkward way. And so all of this is just blowing the lid off the mom. She's more and more aggravated, more and more cussing, yelling, fighting. And it's like they just had this, he had brothers. And like him and the dad and the brothers just kind of had this like unspoken, you know how mom is, and they just all kind of just did what they needed to do to bunker down during the storm of those things to get through it. And then life would be good until sometime later, short time, wasn't too long, but she's back, screaming, yelling, throwing. Just that whole chaotic emotional feeling. But they developed like a space of like, I know what to expect, so this is how I'm gonna operate in it. Well, one day, maybe the alcohol type changed. Maybe he went from dark liquor to light liquor. Maybe he switched from gin to brandy or to cognac or wine. Who knows? Maybe he went top shelf when he used to be in bottom shelf, or the vice versa. Whatever it was, the sedative effect that drinking normally had didn't have that effect on him. He was very incensed. He was very aggravated. And instead of numbing to it and not being responsive, he flipped out in a rage. He beat the mother up. Police was called. Mom looked a mess. House looked a mess. Dad went to jail. court proceeding happened. Dad didn't just go to jail for like a day or two. Dad was gone for a few years. Now, I don't know how the court process went, right? I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm just listening to this man share his story. And you know what his response he was the oldest. I think he was maybe 12 or so. I don't remember. You know what his response was? He was absolutely pissed off, angry, infuriated, disappointed, dejected, done with the dad. Because you knew how mom was, Dad. You knew that this was she. Why would you let yourself do this? And now you're gone. You get to leave, and we're stuck with it. His dad went to jail. His dad went to jail, and his processing of all of that, 12, 13, 14, how many years it was, we had to stay here and deal with that. And you left us, you abandoned us. You took the easy way out, Dad. Meanwhile, imagine that. But he also realized that he hated his mom. But the weird thing about it is that he took care of her. Can you imagine this? So in the midst of her still being herself and him making it better, taking care of his little brothers, right? Trying to take care of the house, trying to help with food, trying to, and pad and cushion things for mom. He hated the person that he loved. How does all of this exist? Some of us know about that. Some of us know what it's like to hate the person that we love and hate the us that's loving the person that we hate. Some of us know about that. Some of us know about that. So this is his situation, right? He vows that he will never let a woman get to him in such a way where it brings out his rage, where it causes him to get outside of himself. He'll just stop dealing with her. And so for a long time, he kept girls at a distance. But he liked them, he was attracted to them, but the slightest thing they would do, and he was very clear, like, that's not the type of relationship that, what do you mean? I thought you wanted to go. This isn't what I want. So, you're great. You're swell. We don't have to. And he kind of kept people at a distance, girl relationships, right? He kept those at a distance. Somewhere in his college year or so, junior year, something like that, he met some girl, and for whatever reason, he wanted to give her a look. He had gone through so many misses. The first several times where his relationships didn't produce fruit, right? They weren't fruitful outcomes, where we had to break up and not talk, and he just charged it to the game. That's just part of it. I'm glad that I was wise enough, smart enough, strong enough to see this coming and nip it in the bud before we even get started. Somewhere around the middle, he started wondering, maybe did I do that too early? Nah, it's okay. Did I? Just questioning, wondering. Somewhere towards the end of that, it started getting to him a little bit. Maybe the growth is in healthily doing this, right? Maybe that's the it. Thinking maybe that's it is not the same thing as healing. Yeah, okay. So he meets this woman. They're college kids. They're in their 20s, early 20s. And they both kind of decide around the same time, individually, separately, that I'm going to reapproach this differently. So instead of her abusing, not loving, allowing herself just to be and live and never have any, disrespect any relationship around, she was going to value herself and allow herself to be real, authentic, open up, and like this could work. I don't have to live like this. But she was scared, right? Scared as hell. Yeah. He was like, I'm not going to bail out at the first instance of dissonance, right? The first time someone pokes his head up to say we don't agree, I'm not going to use that as my reason and my opportunity to get out. I'm going to a degree. As life would have it, they meet up, they find each other, and they go through this process. And the desire to be different and better creates this phenomenal relationship of just growth and healthy vitality between two people who needed to heal. And it was so good, right? They just went through and they're having all of these just great experiences together. They get married, and somewhere early into their newlywed period. So maybe newlywed, I don't know if there's an exact time, like you are no longer a newlywed after this point. You are fully a newlywed here. Is that the first year? Is that, I don't know what it is. Whatever their newlywed period was, the first 5 years, first 3 years, I don't know. Somewhere as newlyweds, right, as they said it, they started having little arguments. Nothing big, right? Because they had already navigated some stuff before. But these were a little different. Like these were, and so like in the back of their minds, it's like, are you changing because we got married? Both of them are kind of like, now that you got me here, are you changing now? Because I thought I was paying enough attention to the us that we are that I wouldn't have to deal with this. Are you trying to tell me something different? They're going through, they're living their lives. And as the arguments get worse, the arguments get worse, and the arguments get worse, he noticed one day that in the middle of them just kind of having like a uncharacteristically high energy, volatile, pitchy kind of exchange, because he was allowing himself to do this. Like maybe this is healthy. Maybe if my dad didn't just numb out, maybe if he had kind of gone back and forth a little bit, he wouldn't have had to explode. So he was allowing himself to do this. And she was fighting against her desire to, as she would say, to just shut down, because she feels as though the arguments were the problem as opposed to the arguments being symptomatic of a problem. So she was trying to fight, no, just because we're arguing doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Yes, we're arguing. This doesn't have to mean it be the end. They're having some particularly high level, high energy argument. And he's like, I'm not really feeling this. Like, let me, you know what? This is not how I want to do this. I do want to be in it. This is all internal. I want to be in it, but I don't want to do it like this. Let me just get a breather, right? Let me just clear my head. So without verbalizing that, he just comes to, I'm gonna get out of here for a little bit. I'm gonna get out of here, right? She's like, no, because there's a part of her that is that little girl whose daddy left. And so when he's like, I'm gonna get out of it, she's like, wait, no. Like she rebels and rejects. That's repulsive to even think about. Everything in her revolts against just the idea of that, the sentiment of that. She's like, no, don't come back. Like, let's be present. Don't just walk out on me, is what she's saying, feeling, but that's not how she's communicating. She's still in her fussy, fearful, argumentative, but him going to leave triggered. And so she ratcheted up a little bit, like it got hiked up a little bit more. Wait, no, right? All he experiences is assault. Like, what do you, whoa, what do you, I know that this is not what's going on. Like, so it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter how much time I spend. At a certain level, they get like this. Yeah. And she's like, why are you not letting me in? Don't close the door on me, on us. Don't do this. And so she's fighting to get in. But she's fighting to get in because she doesn't want to get left again. She's fighting to get in. She's fighting to get in. And he's like defending with everything he has. Because if I let you in, you're going to hurt me and cause me to hurt you. You're going to cause me to react. I don't want to react like that. I don't want to be my dad. I don't want things to end like that. I don't want. Fear. High intensity. She's fighting to get in. She's like, no, stop. Pushes her, throws her to create that space. She kind of falls to the ground. They both freeze. He walks home. I love you. He kisses her on her forehead. Walks out the door. She's left there on the floor with the second love of her life for the second time in the fit, the heat, in the midst of an argument. Kiss her on the forehead and walk out after he told her he loves her. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? You have a breakdown. That's what you do. You sit on the floor and you wail from your soul because life is this. For me, why is life this? Why is life this? If you're her. If you're not her, if you're him, you don't know which way is up as you wander, as you just walk. You don't know where you're going. You don't know why you're going. You just can't put together that all relationships have to be like this. This is how everybody, I got friends, they don't talk like this. They don't say that, but maybe they're lying. Maybe everybody's lying. Maybe I'm just weak. Maybe everybody deals with this and I'm the only one that doesn't like it because I can't deal with it. Or maybe this is not how it is. Maybe I just keep picking horrible people. Maybe my luck sucks. Maybe my luck doesn't suck. I don't, for hours. Because the last time that this happened like this, people went to jail, families were separated, hatred was nurtured. And everything in him was screaming, just go back, take care of her. But then everything else inside of him was saying, you don't want to just go take care of somebody that's going to keep hurting you. When are you going to take care of you? I don't know when I'm going to just take care of me. Home in the floor, sobbing, swollen, puffy, can't just get it together. Unexpectedly, he finds himself kind of back at the door. He opens it. She can't believe it. She has no idea why he's back. That's not how this story plays out. She's seen this tape before. He's supposed to be gone forever, inexplicably, gone off the map, never see him again. This is how relationships go, yeah, right? This is what life taught her. And there he is. Yet here he is, right here. And for the first time, they talked about that stuff. All of those years of growing and moving together was them trying to move forward without untangling the past, the knots of the past. Having a counselor, having a therapist to help us untangle our knotty mess. There's some of us that have been through some things that if people knew what we went home to, If people knew what we did last year before we got to them, if they knew what we did this morning, what happened, how that rolled out, we got people that probably wouldn't even want to really be around us, just shocked, like how? We got some people that would think that we need all of this love and a tender affection. It's like, no, I'm good. This is no, whatever. It's no bit like but that's just because we've become nose blind to it. That's a reference to a scent, right? If you can't smell something that's very fragrant, you become nose blind to it. It's not that those conditions aren't crazy. It's that we've just become accustomed to it, that they become our norm. Norm doesn't mean healthy, right? Your norm could be dysfunction. Our norm could be unhealthy. Our bodies may be used to ingesting chemicals that are harmful for us, and for our systems, it's somehow become normative. Yeah? Same thing can be with abuse. Same thing can be with dysfunction. So, they, for the first time, started unpacking together. And they needed help, and they worked through it, but somehow they worked through it. And it wasn't all smooth sailing after that, right? That's not how life works. But they realized the value of helping people have those type of conversations where I understand what we're talking about. I'm going to use this. And this is a very interesting little thing to use, right? It opens up and, well, from one aspect of it, it's just this. It's black, it's shiny, right? Hard, like it is what it is. This is what I see. But if I was standing over here, that's what I see. This is a very different experience of the same object. The same occurrence gives us very different experiences just from the side of the same table that we're sitting on. If you were looking at it from this way, it's only this big. If I was looking at it from this way, I'm like, well, why don't you just take the attachment out? What attachment? What are you even talking about? You don't see that attachment hanging there? You don't see that? Just read the words underneath the attachment. I'm looking at this thing. I'm looking at this thing. Not only don't I see words, I don't see a place to see where words could even be. What are you talking about? Thus we argue. Thus we fight. Thus we complain. Thus we have breakups. And I don't even just mean romantically. I mean in life. I mean cousins no longer talking. Siblings no longer talking. Parent, children, no longer disowning. Huge wedge. Countries, nations, organizations at odds. This side versus this side, because we see the same exact thing, have a completely different experience of it. And because of that, you're wrong. You're wrong. All you have to do is once you open it and close it, the lights come on. Open what? Open what are you talking about? Perspective is truth. Can you imagine that? My perspective is 100% my truth. It's not the whole of the truth. It's not the entirety of the truth, but it's 100% my truth. As leaders growing in our skillfulness and our ability to help people become different and better as we are on the self-same journey, it is incumbent upon us to teach, to share perspective. That if I were you and I had your same experiences and your same background, Would I look at whatever conditions or events or happenings or occurrences the same way you did, and perhaps come up with the same decisions and take the same or similar actions? If we can't even acknowledge that if we were them, things probably would make that kind of, if we can't even acknowledge that, if the only thing I see is that you're wrong. I was working with an organization in Baltimore years ago, and they had a tool that they used called the awareness wheel. And the awareness wheel was this cycle that showed we see an action taken from a thought process, from a feeling. I was feeling this. To make sense of this feeling, I thought whatever I thought. Because I think this, I took this action. And the thing that they used that I thought was great was somebody that stole hundreds of dollars worth of stuff. Stole $100 worth of stuff. Got to go to jail. Caught you on camera, right? We got video. It was you. Stole food. Still hundreds of dollars worth of stuff, right? It wasn't just $25. Stole food for my family. Because my partner actually was in an accident. We ran out of healthcare coverage. They're at home in pain. We got little ones in there. We needed the food. I was trying to bring food home so I can give the food, get a little bit of it, and then go back to work. Because the money that I'm making is actually trying to cover the cost of this one being sick and this one getting back and forth and everything else that we got going on. Lights, heat, air, roof, covering, shelter. Didn't have enough to also this time get food. I went to get the food. I know it was wrong. Do we exonerate that person? We act like they never did it? But understanding where they're coming from, it helps. And so often we allow ourselves to be like the people that we're helping who have the benefit, the right to only view things through this lens. That's it. I only have to look at things this way. That's it. But we don't get that. We can't take the hat, the mantle, the badge of leadership and also allow ourselves to simply just. And we also can't just say, you know what? I'm going to open up and I'm going to see. Ours instead is to, as we are opening, show, demonstrate, encourage, teach, share how they can open for for the others that they're serving. That's what leadership is. And if we get it twisted, there's no big reward for just, I see things in a great perspective. Good for you, right? And as the rest of us squander and die and suffer, because you're not teaching us how to feed ourselves to open up as well. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach me how to also, and now I don't just have to be connected to people who I have to now feed and they're leeching parasitically off of me, I'm teaching them how also to fish. So with that being said, perspective is key, right? There's something that I want to share in this moment. But I tell you like this. Let's take a break. Let's come back to this, right? Let's come back to this. And when we come back to it, I'm going to actually give you 5 principles that if we understand them, it will help increase our ability to understand perspective. Yes, can we do that? In the meantime, email me info@Rodney C. Burris, BURRIS, info@Rodney C. Burris. and we can talk about this idea of perspective and expanding perspective and the ability to expand perspective within our people together. Let's do it together. At Rodney C. Burris across all social medias. I'm looking forward to connecting. Yeah.